Alright guys, so today we're going to be talking about the Pronated Chest Supported T-Bar Row. How we go about doing this exercise is no different to any other back exercise that we do. The first point of call is that we want to make sure that we shore up our shoulder blades. So the bar is going to want to pull us forward, we're going to pull our shoulder blades back and down. With the pronated, however, because pronation means to put your hands over the top like this, we have supination and we have neutral. Because of the pronation, we need to now think about exactly what it is that we want from this exercise. Now, the reason why I would do any pronation exercise is to work predominantly my upper back. So with that being said, our target muscle predominantly is most likely going to be the likes of our rhomboids, our rear delts, our traps, and bringing that scapular retraction right into play. That is our major focus. So when it comes to setting up, we want to make sure that we are nice and stable and still, and we are pulling our hands apart and aiming to pull a little bit higher. So let's dive into it. First things first, we want to make sure that we are shored up nice and tight. So we want to make sure that we are squeezing in with our glutes, driving into the bench, and almost creating external rotation through our feet. So that way then we are nice and tight. Now, one thing to be aware of is that when this weight does get heavier, most people will start to rock back and forth. Now, the purpose of this exercise is scapular retraction. We're not trying to generate momentum by driving our feet into the bench and angling off our hips. Trying to keep ourselves nice and still and pulling through. So number one point is don't, when the weight gets too heavy, create momentum by using your feet in the platform to drive yourself right up and get right back. So let's dive into the exercise. Pronation. Pronation is hands over the top of the bar. From here, before or once we get into this position, we're going to disc rack. Notice how the bar wants to pull me out. I'm going to pull back and down. Set our scapula, make sure it's nice and tight. Now with my hands, what I'm trying to do from this position is pull them apart. So when I come up, we're getting a full retraction through the scapula. And I'm also pulling higher. Most rows will pull towards your hips. I'm actually trying to pull to the midline of my chest to really over-exaggerate that upper section of my back. Essentially, if I was to try and target my lats, if I wanted this to be a lat developer, I probably wouldn't do this exercise. I'd probably go into things like lat pull downs, wide grip chin-ups, that type of exercise in order to target my lats. So again, what's the purpose of this exercise? Why am I doing this? Well, I'm trying to get a scapular retraction and hit the upper part of my back. So my hands, shoulder blades back and down, my feet are wedged in, my hips are driving through. When I pull through, I'm actually thinking about taking my chest down and my hands up at the same time. So I'm going in this type of motion there, and they'll meet me in the middle. So I'm like this. So again, shoulder blades back and down, hands are pulling apart, my chest is driving through and pulling apart. Now already my elbows went to drop down, so I'm going to flare them out just a little bit more. Coming out, flaring out, 1, flaring out, 2, driving my chest in, 3, 4, 5, good. Make sure we control the negative. I cannot stress enough how much this exercise is controlled purely by retracting like that. If you are not getting this movement here with your scapula and pulling all the way back, essentially this exercise is made quite redundant. So I cannot stress enough, create stability through your feet and your hips, pull the bar apart, shoulder blades back and down, and make sure you get that full retraction and squeeze. The biggest tip I use for my clients or people who train with me is hold it at the top. You'll know if it's working if you can hold it. So when you first warm up, pull your shoulder blades back and down, pull your hands out, and hold and pause. Get that retraction. Activate those muscles. There's little muscles that sit in your below your traps called your rhomboids and your rotator cuff muscles that don't get a lot of work because they're not that bigger muscles. So, and especially with today's age where we're on computers and hunched over, we want to make sure that we're getting that full retraction and we're waking these muscles up. So give them time to wake up and force them to activate by simply creating pauses. So again, shoulder blades back and down. Pause, hold, activate. And then control the weight down with those little muscles. that you've just woken up. And that there, team, is how you do a pronated chest supported T-bar row.